Did you know Elvis Presley had a room in his mansion that looked more like a wild tropical jungle than an actual living space? I'm talking about the famous jungle room inside Graceland. It's one of the most eccentric and talked about parts of Elvis's home, and honestly, when you see it, it almost feels like you've stepped into another world. It wasn't just a room with furniture, it was like a whole experience. But here's the exciting part. Elvis's former girlfriend has just shared never-before-seen photos from inside that very room. Real photos. Not the polished, carefully staged ones that most fans have seen on Graceland tours. These are rare, personal snapshots that show the jungle room as it really was when Elvis was alive, when the king himself walked through those shag carpets and sat in those oversized chairs. And that's what makes this so special. Because if you've ever wondered what life was really like inside Elvis's private spaces, beyond the public tours and velvet ropes, these pictures bring us closer to the truth. They don't just show furniture or walls. They reveal pieces of Elvis's personality, the side of him that he kept for himself and his closest friends. So stick with me, because what you're about to hear isn't just about decor. It's about Elvis's world, and the way he chose to live in it. So let's go back for a second. What exactly was the jungle room? Most people know it as this over-the-top lounge in Graceland, but the story goes deeper than that. Elvis designed it himself in the 1970s. He didn't hire some fancy designer to come in with sketches and mood boards. No, this was his vision. Think about this: shag carpets, exotic wooden furniture with carved details, even an indoor waterfall. Yes, you heard that right. He had a waterfall built inside his house. Who does that? Elvis does. And while some people laughed at how wild it looked, for Elvis, it was perfect. It was a mix of luxury, comfort, and a little drama, all rolled into one. The jungle room wasn't just about appearances, though. It had a purpose. This was where Elvis hung out. He'd relax here with friends, spend time with family, and most importantly, listen to music. Later on, he even used it to record some of his final tracks. So when you think about it, this wasn't just another themed room. It was part of his life. It held energy, memories, and music. Now, this is where the new photos change everything. His former girlfriend, someone who was there with him and saw the room in its true form, shared photos that fans have never seen. These pictures aren't polished. They're not meant for display. They show the jungle room exactly how it looked when Elvis was alive, with all the little details intact. Imagine being able to walk into that space, not as a tourist on a guided tour, but as someone who truly belonged there. Picture yourself stepping through the doorway and instantly being wrapped up in an atmosphere that felt both bold and cozy at the same time. You look around and notice how the lighting gave the room a warm, almost magical glow, like a soft filter over everything. The patterns on the furniture catch your eye, each design loud yet oddly inviting. The carpets under your feet are thick, the kind that make you want to kick off your shoes and sink into them. The waterfall in the corner trickles in the background, adding a calm rhythm to the room. It doesn't feel like a mansion in Memphis anymore. It feels like a secret escape, a place untouched by the world outside. And that's what makes these newly shared photos so powerful. They capture that exact feeling. They're not staged for tourists. They're not polished to make everything look perfect. They're raw. They're real. They're like a time machine, pulling us back into a moment that most of us could only dream of experiencing. Looking at them, you almost forget it's 2025. Instead, you feel like you're standing there in the 1970s, maybe just around the corner from Elvis himself. Here's something most people might not realize. While fans for years assumed the jungle room was just Elvis being flashy and eccentric, his girlfriend revealed something deeper. The room wasn't built for shock value. It wasn't some random collection of wild furniture and decorations. It was actually inspired by his love for Hawaii. And if you know anything about Elvis, that makes perfect sense. Elvis absolutely adored the islands. They weren't just vacation spots for him. They were a source of peace, joy, and inspiration. He filmed some of his most iconic movies there, like Blue Hawaii. He performed concerts there, including his legendary Aloha from Hawaii special that was broadcast to millions around the world. And whenever he could, he escaped to Hawaii just to breathe, relax, and recharge. For Elvis, Hawaii was more than a place. It was a feeling. It was warmth, sunshine, music, and freedom all rolled into one. So when he came back home to Tennessee, he wanted to carry a piece of that paradise with him. That's where the jungle room came in. The exotic furniture, the tropical vibe, the indoor waterfall, it all makes sense once you know his heart was set on bringing a little bit of Hawaii home. Suddenly, what might look random or over the top to some people actually becomes deeply personal. And here's where the story gets even more fascinating. The jungle room wasn't just a lounge where Elvis relaxed. Believe it or not, it also doubled as a recording studio. In 1976, Elvis turned this quirky space into something more. He recorded several tracks right there in that room. Think about that. The shag carpet, the wooden panels, the unusual acoustics, they all gave his music a unique sound. It wasn't a profession. In fact, parts of his final 2 albums were made right there in the jungle room. Imagine Elvis, late in his career, sitting in that space surrounded by the things he loved, pouring his voice into the microphone while the waterfall hummed in the background. That's not just a recording session. That's history being made in the most unexpected setting. And it tells you something about Elvis's character too. He wasn't afraid to bend the rules or do things his own way. Now, let's talk about the furniture for a moment, because that's always been a topic of debate. People back then, and even now, had strong opinions about it. Some looked at those massive carved chairs and bold colors and thought it was gaudy, maybe even tacky. Others said it looked like something straight out of a theme park or a movie set. But here's the thing, Elvis didn't care. He wasn't trying to impress critics. He wasn't trying to follow design trends. What mattered to him was comfort and personality. He wanted his space to reflect what he loved, not what the world thought he should love. For Elvis, the jungle room wasn't just about furniture. It was about feeling at home. It was his safe space, the place where he could kick back, let loose, and just be himself away from the spotlight. And that's the bigger message here. The jungle room wasn't just decoration. It wasn't just a quirky part of Graceland. It was Elvis's personality brought to life in physical form. Those new photos his girlfriend shared prove that. They don't just show chairs or carpets or walls. They show energy. They show warmth. They show a side of Elvis that was vibrant, playful, and unapologetically himself. It's funny, isn't it? When we think of celebrities, we often picture the polished version of them. The one we see on stage, in interviews, or in carefully staged magazine spreads. Everything looks perfect. Every detail is controlled. But these candid shots of the jungle room remind us of something important. Elvis wasn't just a star. He was a man who loved certain things deeply. He wanted to be surrounded by reminders of the places and feelings that made him happy. And that's what the jungle room was all about. It wasn't about showing off. It wasn't about creating a spectacle. It was about Elvis saying, "This is me. This is what makes me feel alive." And when you look at those photos, you can feel that. You can almost hear him laughing with friends, strumming his guitar, or just sitting back quietly while the waterfall ran in the background. So let me ask you something. If you could step into one private room of any celebrity's house, whose would it be, and why? Think about that for a second. Would you want to walk into the writing room where your favorite singer scribbled down lyrics that would later become hits? Would you want to sit at the kitchen table where a famous chef cooked their first big recipe? Or maybe you'd like to see the study where an author wrote their most powerful words. Drop your answer in the comments, because I'd really love to know. These little details about private spaces tell us so much about the people we admire. And if this little peek into Elvis's jungle room has sparked your curiosity, you'll definitely want to check out our other video on the hidden stories behind Graceland. Because trust me, there are so many layers to Elvis's life that most people never get to hear about. And once you start peeling back those layers, you don't just see the performer. You see the man behind the legend. The human side of Elvis. Before you head out, if you enjoyed this trip back in time, do me a quick favor and hit that like button. It really helps. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss more stories like this one. If you've got a fellow Elvis fan in your life, share this video with them too. Because I promise, they'll love hearing these little details just as much as you do. At the end of the day, the jungle room isn't just about carpets, furniture, or waterfalls. It's about Elvis himself. It's about how he lived, what he loved, and the space he created for himself when the world outside got a little too loud. These never-before-seen photos give us one more chance to step into his world, to feel closer to him, and to understand the king a little better. And maybe that's the magic of spaces like this. They hold memories, energy, and pieces of the person who created them. The jungle room isn't just part of Graceland. It's part of Elvis's story. It's part of who he was. And when we look at those photos today, decades after his passing, we're reminded of something powerful. Elvis may be gone, but his story, his spirit, and his spaces live on. So hold on to that thought. Because even though Elvis left us a long time ago, rooms like the jungle room, and the rare photos we continue to discover, keep his memory alive in a way nothing else can. And maybe, just maybe, that's why people still say Elvis never really left the building.